Hello there. We are working on 5th grade, lesson 6.5, animal height line plots. It's page 208. We skipped over 6.4 because 6.4 involved finding the heights of your classmates, and I think even one that had to do with pencil length. We can't do those because you're not in class, and I'm not going to make you go out and find your classmates during a mandatory quarantine. So we're skipping right ahead to 6.5. We're going to talk about line plots, data, and what kind of data we can get from those line plots. So you're going to see on 208, you're going to be working in conjunction, that means together with, page 209. So I'm going to slide over there. Of course, you see data on 208 and answers regarding your data on 209. So right away, at the very top of the page, they're going to ask you to find the typical height of a blank, and it says name of animal. So this is where you're going to get to choose. You can see here, you can choose the plot for the emperor penguin, the chimpanzee, or the red kangaroo. You're only going to be focusing on one of these, not all together. Just pick one. So with that in mind, we're going to talk about typical height. What is typical height? Typical height basically means the average. So we're going to talk about how to find the average of something. For instance, if you're going to facepalm, but I work with average the most in life as it relates to basketball. So here's how you could find average. If in game 1, my brother Kyle scored 10 points, and in game 2, he scored 17 points, but then game 3, he only scored 4. The question is going to be, how could we find out what his scoring average is? Or in this case, what would be his typical scoring output? When they say typical in this case, that's basically a replacement for height. So to find the average, you need to add up all of your data points. So in this case, we only have 3. 10 plus 17 equals 27. 27 plus 4 equals 31. You're going to take all of your data points, and you need to take that total and divide it by however many data points you had. And in this case, it's pretty easy to tell that we have 1 data point, 2 data points, 3 data points. So it's going to be 31 divided by 3. I'm going to do some magic here. Usually this is a tough division problem. We know 30 divided by 3 is 10, but 31 divided by 3 is going to be a little bit more. It's actually going to be 10 and 1/3 of another. And I know the fraction for 1/3 is 10.333 and a 3, and it goes on forever. This little line at the top means it goes on forever. So that means over 3 games, Kyle averaged 10.3 points per game. You're going to do the same thing today, but there's a catch. You're going to have a lot more than 3 data points. So you're going to probably need to use a calculator in case you didn't hear me. So the trick is, can you find a strategy? If we slide back over, can you find a strategy to add these data points up reliably? Reliably means correctly, accurately. For instance, you may know very well, if we see, I'm going to look at the emperor penguin as our example. You can probably see right here, this emperor penguin heights is coming in inches. And if you look closely, we have 1x above 41 inches. That means there's one penguin that weighs 41 inches. Now the trick is, do we know what this one means. It's not on 41, it's not on 42. So how much does this penguin weigh right here, right in the middle of 41 and 42? And you might be able to acknowledge, hopefully, that halfway between 41 and 42 means we're talking about 41 and a half. Now the decimal form is 41.5. Okay, so we have one penguin that weighs 41 inches, another that weighs 41 and a half, or 41.5. You're going to notice throughout your chart you have a number of times where a penguin's going to be right in between. Here's another one, 46 and a half, 47 and a half, 48 and a half, 50 and a half. I think that's all of them, unless you guys see one that I'm not. Now, let's talk about what happens when we have more than one data point on an inch. And that works out right here. We know that we can see two x's at 43 inches. Do we know what that means? That means that we will have two penguins that weigh that are 43 inches tall. Now, you could go ahead and just put a 43 and a 43 here. What I would do is I would add those two up right now. I know 43 and 43, this is some mental math at work, but you can use a calculator if you need to. That's going to equal 86. So instead of putting a couple of small 43s here, I'm going to put the total for all of them in that row right here. 86 total inches. And anytime I see a row with more than one, I would just go ahead and add those guys up and put them right up top. For instance, 47 and a half. This will be 47 and a half plus 47 and a half plus 47 and a half. And that's one I would even need to write out or use a calculator for. So what you should end up with when you're all said and done is you should have numbers above each x. How much 46 and a half times 2 is, 47 and a half times 1, 2, 3. You should eventually have a number over everything. And since, just like Kyle's basketball games, since we added all our point totals up, once you've found out how much each of these columns are worth, you're going to have to add them all up. I know it's going to be a handful. That means once you find all these numbers here, you're going to have to go back and do 41 plus 41.5 plus 86 plus whatever this is, plus this, this, and this. It's going to be a lot of addition. You might have to do it more than once to check your work. Okay, but you should end up with a total. I'm guessing it's going to, obviously it's going to be in the hundreds. It might even be over 1,000. I can't really tell. I don't know if it's going to eclipse 1,000. But it's definitely going to be in the hundreds. So once you find your total height equals blank, you're going to have to take that total and divide him by the number in the set. That means you have to count up how many x's, how many penguins did we actually measure. And that's what you're going to divide by. And so total height equals x, and I'll say number in set equals y. So you're going to do total height divided by the number in the set. I'm not going to count them, but it looks like there might be 20 or 15. You'll have to actually figure that out for yourself. So x divided by y equals typical / average height. Average is fun. Once you know how to do it, once you practice it, you can find the average of anything. You can take all your test scores and add up your actual scores and divide by the number of tests, and you'll find your average test score. And in fact, that's how we find your grades at the end of the semester. We add up all of your assignments, how many points you've earned, and we divide it by how many points were possible. And we get an average score. Okay, so you have a few other questions they'll ask you to answer, but I think this should give you a pretty good head start. If you have any questions, as always, let me know. See you guys.